Here is the full speech in the style you're looking for: heartfelt, powerful, and spiritually reflective, like a warm and inspiring talk. Pure love in Islam is a love that transcends fleeting emotions and temporary attractions. It is a bond built first and foremost upon the recognition that every feeling in the heart is a trust from Allah. When a believer experiences affection for someone, they understand that this feeling is not merely a desire or impulse to be indulged without restraint, but rather a test and an opportunity to elevate the soul by aligning that love with the commands of the Creator. Pure love is distinguished from mere infatuation because it is rooted in sincerity. In Arabic, ikhlas, meaning the love is not contaminated by ulterior motives, selfish ambitions, or hidden agendas. It is a love that arises out of respect for the person's faith, their character, their modesty, their devotion to Allah, and their goodness to creation. This love sees beyond physical appearance or material benefit. It is a longing for companionship that nurtures the deen, protects chastity, and contributes to mutual growth toward Jannah. Pure love in Islam is anchored in the heart, but guided by the intellect and disciplined by divine law. It does not manifest as heedless pursuit of desires or reckless disregard for Islamic ethics. Instead, it is a feeling that is restrained by modesty, strengthened by patience, and purified through correct intention. In the same way that a flower needs clean soil and water to bloom, love needs the fertile ground of taqwa, God, consciousness, to flourish in a way that pleases Allah. This love begins with loving Allah and His Messenger above all else. It is narrated that the Prophet said, "None of you truly believes until I am more beloved to him than his father, his child, and all of mankind." This means that any love that competes with or contradicts obedience to Allah and His Messenger cannot be considered pure. True love is a reflection of that primary love. It is love for the sake of Allah, seeking His approval, conducted within the boundaries He set. When two hearts are joined together by the shared goal of worshipping Allah, supporting one another in righteousness, and protecting each other from sin, this is pure love. It does not lead a person to compromise their principles or their modesty. Rather, it inspires them to be better, to guard their gaze, to control their speech, and to maintain dignity. Even in longing, there is discipline. Even in attachment, there is fear of transgressing the limits. Pure love in Islam also means loyalty, the willingness to stand by someone through tests and trials because you see your relationship as an amana, a trust given by Allah. This loyalty is not dependent on constant excitement or emotional highs. It is a steadfastness that arises from understanding that marriage is an act of worship, a path to completing half of one's faith, and a means of securing tranquility for the soul. Such love is never casual. It is never approached as a temporary arrangement or a frivolous pastime. From the outset, it is defined by serious intention, the intention to honor, to protect, to cherish, and ultimately to commit in a halal manner. It does not rush without planning, nor does it delay without purpose. It is measured, deliberate, and respectful of the processes that Islam prescribes. In essence, pure love is a mercy from Allah. It is a bond that He Himself describes as a sign in the Quran, and of His signs is that He created for you from yourselves mates that you may find tranquility in them, and He placed between you affection and mercy. Quran 30:21. This tranquility, this affection, this mercy, they are the hallmarks of pure love. They cannot be bought or faked or sustained by superficial attraction alone. They are cultivated when hearts are sincere, when intentions are noble, and when the relationship is constantly nurtured by remembrance of Allah, gratitude for His blessings, and fear of losing His pleasure. Pure love in Islam is not a destination reached in haste, nor is it a feeling that comes without sacrifice or struggle. It is a journey of the heart, a journey that requires patience, self-restraint, humility, and a constant turning back to Allah in dua and reliance. It is the most beautiful of all loves because it uplifts both individuals, protects their dignity, and lights the path toward nearness to their Lord. Love, the most powerful emotion placed in the human heart, finds its purest and highest form when it begins with Allah. Before the heart turns to any creation, it must first be filled with the love of its Creator, because without that anchor, without that divine connection, love becomes unstable, dependent on moods, appearances, and expectations that the dunya can never consistently fulfill. But when love begins with Allah, it is rooted in something eternal, something unshakable. Loving Allah is not a concept that belongs only to scholars or the righteous. It is the foundation of every believer's relationship with life. Everything a person does, how they speak, what they seek, who they trust, and even who they love becomes a reflection of how much they love Allah. It becomes the starting point of every emotion and the filter through which every other relationship is processed. When a heart is attached to Allah, it finds peace even in loneliness, hope even in hardship, and direction even in confusion, because the one it loves is always near, always aware, always merciful. The one who begins their love with Allah does not chase people for attention, validation, or fulfillment. Instead, they turn to Him for acceptance and pour their emotions into du'a, into sajda, into seeking His guidance before opening their heart to someone else. A believer who begins their love with Allah knows that no human being, no matter how sincere, can ever carry the burden of their soul, that no one's affection can give them what Allah gives: security, tranquility, forgiveness, purpose. So even if they love someone in this world, they love them through the lens of Allah's commandments. They ask themselves, is this love pleasing to Allah? Is it making me better or distracting me from my Lord? Is it leading me toward the halal or pulling me into the haram? Love that starts with Allah is not based on infatuation or desire. It's not impulsive. It's not selfish. It's full of shyness before Allah, full of caution, full of prayer. This kind of love gives before it asks, uplifts before it consumes, and walks carefully, because it knows that the giver of love is watching, and the giver can also take it away. And when a person places Allah at the center of their emotional world, something beautiful happens. Their love for others becomes more balanced, more compassionate, more forgiving. Why? Because they are no longer depending on others to fill what only Allah can fill. They no longer expect perfection from people who were never created to be perfect. They seek less, demand less, complain less, and instead they give more, forgive more, and pray more. Such love becomes a form of worship. It is no longer about what you can take from the other person, but about how your love can please Allah. You love someone, so you pray for them in secret. You care for them, so you help them draw closer to their Lord. You desire to be with them, but you hold yourself back from disobedience, not out of fear of losing them, but out of fear of losing Allah's closeness. When love begins with Allah, every delay has wisdom. Every no from the dunya is a yes from Allah in disguise. Every heartbreak is not the end of the story, but a redirection towards something more pure. Love that starts with Allah does not end in disappointment. Even if it doesn't result in marriage because it was sincere, it was protected, and it was preserved in the remembrance of the one who writes every story. Modesty, or haya in Islam, is not just about clothing or speech. It is an inner light, a sense of self, awareness before Allah, a form of spiritual armor that shields the heart from corruption. And when we talk about love, especially between a man and a woman, modesty becomes the essential guardrail that protects that love from being tainted, misused, or lost in the storm of desire. Modesty is not about being cold or emotionless. On the contrary, modesty is what preserves the beauty of emotion. It ensures that love remains dignified, protected from exploitation, from lies, from moments of weakness that can turn something sincere into something sinful. Love, when left without modesty, becomes exposed like a flame with no covering, vulnerable to the winds of temptation and Shaitan's whispers. In Islam, the love between two people is not forbidden, but it is never meant to be left unguarded. It is meant to be dignified, honorable, deliberate. Haya acts as a shield that tells the heart, Not everything you feel must be followed. Not everything you desire should be pursued. And not every love must be spoken unless it's with the right intention, at the right time, in the right way. Modesty teaches us restraint, not repression. It doesn't tell you to kill your emotions, it tells you to discipline them. It tells you your heart is precious. Don't give it to someone who hasn't proven that they will honor it in the way Allah commanded. It whispers, guard yourself until what you have is pure, until what you give is safe, until your relationship is pleasing to the one who gave you the ability to love in the first place. When a person is modest, their love carries depth. It's not about how many messages were exchanged or how many hours were spent talking in secret. It's about how much patience was shown, how much was held back, how much was sacrificed just to preserve the blessing and not fall into regret. Modesty slows things down, it doesn't rush. It questions, is this the right time? Am I truly ready? Am I only following my feelings, or am I thinking of my akhirah? It resists the pressure of society that says, if you love someone, you must act now, cross lines, prove it physically, or risk losing it. No, Islam says the opposite. If you love someone, protect it. Guard it, build it on a foundation of Allah's pleasure, not just passion. Haya brings beauty to love. A woman who is modest in her feelings, in her dress, in her speech, she is not suppressing herself. She is elevating her worth. A man who guards his eyes, who lowers his gaze, who respects boundaries, he is not weak. He is showing true strength. Both are walking with dignity, knowing that when the time is right, their hearts can meet with barakah, not with baggage. The tragedy of our time is that love has become so exposed, so public, so impulsive, and then people wonder why it doesn't last. When modesty is removed, love becomes about taking, not giving, about feeding the ego, not feeding the soul. About desire, not destiny, and without modesty, even what was once beautiful becomes heavy with regret. But where haya is present, even silence has value. A glance becomes powerful, not polluted. A message is measured, not manipulative. The space between two hearts is not a void to be filled recklessly, but a sacred gap to be crossed only with intention and purity. And the most beautiful thing, when a love protected by modesty finally reaches its halal destination, it is full of no shame, no hidden guilt, no scars of disobedience. It's fresh, it's peaceful, it's surrounded by the mercy of Allah. And it feels safe because it was built not just with affection, but with taqwa, with consciousness of Allah every step of the way. Modesty, then, is not a limitation on love, it is love's sanctuary. It's what keeps it clean, keeps it real, keeps it from turning into a story of heartbreak. It's the quiet guard that walks beside love, saying, I will protect you until you're ready, I will shield you until you're strong, I will wait with you until Allah says, now is the time. Loyalty in Islam is not a poetic word we say when times are good. It is not simply the result of love, it is the proof of it. It is what remains when the excitement fades, when emotions fluctuate, and when the heart is tested by distance, difficulty, or delay. In a world where feelings are treated as temporary and conditional, Islam teaches us that true love is not defined by how strong the feelings are, but by how deeply loyalty is practiced, especially when those feelings are tested. Loyalty is when you stay true to someone even in their absence, not because they are watching you, but because Allah is. It's when you protect someone's name in conversations they'll never hear. It's when you continue to make du'a for someone even when they're far, even when you're uncertain what the future holds, because your love was never built on neediness, it was built on sincerity, on hope, on trust in Allah's plan. Feelings come and go, they rise and fall like waves. But loyalty is the anchor. It says, even if I feel less today, I will not act less. Even if the journey is delayed, I will not betray. Even if the path becomes difficult, I will not retreat unless Allah shows me it's time to let go. This level of loyalty does not come from attachment alone, it comes from taqwa, from knowing that when you care for someone in a halal way, you are accountable to Allah for how you treat their heart. Loyalty is shown in silence, in actions others don't see, resisting temptations when no one would know, setting boundaries even when no one is enforcing them. It's being careful not to damage what could be something beautiful in the future, just because the present feels uncertain. And sometimes loyalty looks like patience, sometimes it looks like waiting, sometimes it even looks like stepping back when rushing forward might dishonor the process. In today's culture, people give up too quickly. They walk away the moment feelings change. They leave when the spark dims, not realizing that every light dims if you don't nurture it. Islam teaches us that commitment is not based on how someone makes you feel, but on your intention to build something that lasts. That intention is what pushes you to seek Allah together, to overcome weaknesses, to communicate with mercy, to hold each other up in prayer, not just in romance. Loyalty means choosing someone again and again, not because they are perfect, but because you've made a choice, a conscious, God-centered choice to see their imperfections and still remain committed to helping them grow. It's not saying, I will only stay if you make me feel good, but rather, I will stay because I want what we have to be a source of barakah, even when it's hard. And when the relationship is not yet official, when you're in the stage of planning, waiting, hoping, loyalty becomes even more crucial. It's easy to talk about commitment after marriage, but what about before? What about when your love is just an idea, a possibility, a prayer? That's when loyalty is tested the most, because it's easier to leave. It's easier to entertain someone else. It's easier to say, maybe this isn't meant to be, at the first sign of difficulty. But loyalty, real loyalty, says, if this is still good in the eyes of Allah, if there is kar in this, if my heart remains firm in istikhara, I will not turn away just because it's taking time. I will not compare what we have to others. I will not look for shortcuts. I will wait with dignity. I will move forward with honor. I will protect this love with silence, patience, and sincerity until Allah brings clarity. This kind of loyalty is rare because it's not driven by emotion alone. It's driven by faith. It is not only about being loyal to the person you love, it is about being loyal to the promise you made to Allah. I will pursue this only in a way that pleases you. So even when you miss them, you don't cross limits. Even when you long for them, you don't open doors that Allah has closed. Even when you fear losing them, you hold your ground not out of pride, but out of trust, because you know that whatever is written for you will come. And if it's not written, no amount of disloyal compromise will ever make it last. In Islam, the niyyah, or the intention, is not just a starting point, it is the essence, the silent engine behind every action, every word, every step we take. And when it comes to love, the most emotionally charged journey a person can experience, intentions are what define whether that journey is a source of reward or a cause of regret. Intentions are invisible, but their effects are not. You may never speak them out loud, but they shape everything from the way you look at someone to how you pursue them, how you interact with them, how long you wait, and even what you're willing to sacrifice. And the truth is, no matter how beautiful the connection, how deep the affection, if the intention behind it is misguided, the relationship will eventually reveal that. The foundation will crack, even if the walls look strong. Islam teaches us that every deed is judged by its intention. The Prophet said, actions are but by intention, and every person will have only what they intended. Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. This means that even love, when approached with the right intention, becomes an act of worship. It's not just an emotion anymore, it's a means of drawing closer to Allah. When you intend to love someone for His sake, your goal is not just to be with them, your goal is to protect them, to protect yourself. To seek Allah's pleasure through the way you care for that person, even if it means withholding, waiting, or walking away respectfully if Allah wills otherwise. Intentions are like the roots of a tree. You don't see them, but they determine whether the tree grows straight or crooked, whether it survives the storm or collapses. If your intention is marriage, not just company, responsibility, not just romance, the fear of Allah, not just fear of being alone, then your path, even with its delays and challenges, will have barakah, because it's being guided by sincerity. But when the intention is unclear, or worse, when it's rooted in desire, in loneliness, In worldly obsession, the whole relationship becomes unstable. You may feel close to the person, but distant from Allah. You may gain someone's attention, but lose your own peace. That's the tragedy of a relationship built on mixed intentions. It feels good in the beginning, but it weighs heavier with time. Sometimes people use the language of love, but their intention is convenience. They say, "I care about you," but they are not willing to take the steps toward commitment. They say, "I want what's best for you," but they pull you into sin. They say, "We'll get married one day," but they delay and distract and deepen the attachment without clarifying their purpose. A sincere intention is honest. It doesn't play games. It doesn't hide behind excuses. It is brave enough to say, "I want to do this the right way. I want Allah to bless this." And if they cannot do it the right way, if they're not ready to honor the process, then love itself demands they step back. Because intention without action is not love. It's comfort disguised as care. There is power in realigning your intention, even midway through your relationship. If things started casually, but your heart has changed, and you now want to make it right, that shift in intention is valuable in the sight of Allah. Sometimes repentance doesn't mean letting go of the person, it means letting go of the way you've been handling the connection. It means renewing your niyyah and saying, "Ya Allah, I want this person, but I want you more, so guide this love or remove it if it's harmful to my deen." Intention changes the way you communicate. It softens your speech, puts barriers around your desires, and teaches you to ask not just "What do I feel?" but "What does Allah want from me right now?" It transforms the way you wait, no longer out of frustration, but out of purpose. You're not just holding back, you're preserving something sacred. You're not just enduring, you're worshipping through patience. The most beautiful relationships are not necessarily the ones that began in the most romantic ways, but the ones that were cleaned by intention. Redirected with humility, guarded by discipline, guided by faith. Because when your intention is pure, Allah helps you even in the unseen. He brings clarity where there was confusion. He strengthens your heart where there was weakness. And He writes a story for you that is far more meaningful than the one you are trying to write on your own. In a world that glorifies temporary attachments, talking stages, and undefined relationships, Islam calls us to something far more noble. Something deeper, something sacred. Islam calls us to nikah not as a social label, not as an end to romance, but as a divine covenant, a spiritual milestone, and a mercy from Allah. Marriage in Islam is not a backup plan for when you're tired of being alone. It's not the prize you claim after playing games with someone's emotions. It is the goal of any relationship built on love, trust, and faith, a goal that brings structure to your affection, purpose to your intentions, and safety to your soul. Companionship on its own can be easy. You talk, you share laughs, you bond, you text each other late into the night. But if it has no direction, no boundaries, no vision for the future, it becomes fragile. One argument, one distraction, one delay, and suddenly it shatters. Why? Because companionship without commitment is built on feelings, and feelings are wind. But marriage is built on choice, intention, and accountability before Allah. When you love someone in Islam, it is not just about how well you get along. It's about asking yourself, can I protect this person's dignity? Can I stand beside them in front of Allah and say, I will be their partner in deen and dunya? Can I handle the responsibilities this love brings with it, or do I just enjoy the idea of them without being ready to honor their rights? Marriage is not about claiming someone, it's about honoring them. It's about being ready to care for them when they are at their worst. It's about stepping into their life not just when it's easy, but when they are broken, vulnerable, anxious, and still choosing them because you made a promise in front of Allah. That kind of companionship doesn't fade with mood swings or distance. That kind of love is stable because it is rooted in duty, not just desire. Too often, people treat love like it's a relationship status to enjoy. But in Islam, love is a responsibility. It comes with rights. It comes with expectations. It comes with consequences if you cross limits, and reward if you walk that path with taqwa. That's why Islam doesn't allow aimless dating. Not because love is haram, but because love without structure can harm you. It can waste your time. It can open the doors to sin. And eventually, it can leave you empty with memories you can't erase, attachments that linger, and regrets that stay long after the person is gone. Marriage is the protection. It's the halal container for love. It's the space where you can express affection without guilt, grow together without fear, build dreams without secrecy. It doesn't kill romance, it refines it. It doesn't end desire, it dignifies it. You don't need to hide your feelings or walk on eggshells because you've entered a union that Allah Himself calls a sign of His mercy. And among His signs is that He created for you from yourselves mates, that you may find tranquility in them, and He placed between you affection and mercy. Quran 30:21. Look at the words, tranquility, affection, mercy. These are not found in relationships that lack purpose. They don't survive in situationships. They grow only in commitment. In a bond where two people say, we may not be perfect, but for the sake of Allah, we are going to walk this path with loyalty, with forgiveness, with patience as husband and wife. A marriage shifts the mindset. You no longer ask, how do I feel today? But rather, what does my spouse need from me today? You're not just in love, you're in service. You're not just holding hands, you're holding each other through life's storms. And you begin to see that companionship is beautiful, but without the frame of marriage, it's incomplete. It lacks the divine protection that gives your connection endurance. So when you say you love someone, ask yourself, am I building toward nikah? Or am I drifting in a sea of uncertainty because I'm afraid of commitment, or delaying out of comfort? Because if marriage is not your goal, what is your end? Are you investing your time and your heart in something you would never be willing to make halal? Are you nurturing feelings that are leading nowhere? And if you're not ready for marriage yet, that's okay, Islam doesn't rush you. But don't pretend a temporary relationship is enough to satisfy what your soul was designed to experience in the right way. Work on yourself, build your deen, prepare for the responsibility that comes with marriage, pray for the right person, and when you find them, be clear, be honorable. Set your intentions in line with the sunnah, not with the culture of indecisiveness. Because love, in its purest form, was never meant to float endlessly in uncertainty. It was meant to land, to be grounded in marriage, to be protected, to be lived with barakah, to become a source of sakina, not stress. Of elevation, not temptation, of clarity, not confusion. The heart is the most sacred and vulnerable part of the human being. It is where sincerity lives, where intentions take root, where love grows, but also where desire, delusion, and temptation can quietly enter. And so, in Islam, we are not just told to purify the heart, we are taught to guard it, to place a barrier between the heart and anything that could lead it away from Allah. Temptation, by its nature, is subtle. It does not arrive loudly. It enters slowly through a glance that lingers, a message that feels innocent, a curiosity that leads to comfort, a closeness that feels too good to question. It doesn't always look like sin. In fact, the most dangerous temptations are the ones that wear the mask of connection, the ones that convince you, this can't be wrong, it feels too right. But Islam teaches us to protect the heart before it becomes attached, before it is captivated by something or someone that was never meant to stay, before it starts to crave what the soul was not built to carry outside the limits of what Allah has allowed. Guarding the heart is not about shutting it down. It is about training it to desire only what is pure, what is beneficial, and what leads to lasting peace. Allah says in the Quran, do not follow the desires of your heart, lest they lead you away from the path of Allah. Surah Sad 38:26. Desires aren't evil, but they become dangerous when they are uncontrolled, when they begin to drive your choices instead of your values, when you allow your heart to become infatuated before it's prepared, when you begin to chase a person instead of chasing Allah. That's when temptation takes over, and slowly, what was once pure begins to feel heavy, secretive, impulsive. Guarding your heart means discipline before damage. It means setting emotional limits even when there's no physical sin. Because the truth is, sometimes the most powerful sins are the ones no one sees the late. night thoughts, the private fantasies, the emotional dependency that begins to grow, not through action, but through attachment. That attachment becomes addiction, and addiction blinds you. It convinces you that you need that person more than you need to breathe, more than you need to obey. But when the heart is protected, it sees clearly. It recognizes that not every attraction must be pursued, that not every connection is a blessing, that sometimes what feels good now can become a source of pain later because it wasn't earned the halal way, or it wasn't written for you to begin with. To guard the heart is to safeguard your future. It's to tell yourself, I will not let today's temptation cost me tomorrow's peace. It's to remember that everything done in secret will one day be shown before Allah, and if that thought doesn't make you pause, it means the heart is already in danger. This guarding happens through the eyes lowering the gaze, because the eyes are the gate to the heart. One look can turn into longing, one glance can become a fire. So when Allah tells the believing men and women to lower their gaze, it's not to shame us, it's to protect us. Because once the eyes feed on what is forbidden, the heart begins to starve from what is sacred. Guarding the heart also means guarding the tongue, not speaking words of affection without commitment, not engaging in flirtation under the excuse of just getting to know each other, not expressing love when you're not yet willing to honor it with responsibility. Because every word you plant in someone else's heart, you're accountable for. If you're not ready to water that love through nikah, then don't plant it with emotional promises. It also means guarding your thoughts. Because Shaitan whispers not just in actions, but in imagination. He paints scenarios, he fuels what-ifs. He convinces the heart to obsess over someone who may not even be good for your deen. And if you don't train your thoughts to return to Allah when they drift, you may find yourself consumed by fantasies that erode your faith silently. The believer knows that protecting the heart is not always easy, especially in a world where exposure is constant. Love stories are romanticized, boundaries are mocked, instant gratification is glorified, but the believer fights back not with force, but with taqwa. They turn their pain into du'a, their longing into istighfar, their silence into strength. They resist temptation not because they don't feel, but because they feel deeply, and they want that feeling to be worth something in the sight of Allah. Guarding the heart doesn't mean you'll never feel anything. It means you've decided not to act on every feeling. It means that even if your heart is drawn to someone, you check your intention, you check your limits, and you ask yourself, am I walking toward Allah with this love, or am I wandering away from Him? Because real love is never afraid of delay. Real love can wait. Real love can breathe even within boundaries. But temptation rushes. It's impatient. It's loud. It demands now. And what begins in haste often ends in regret. Communication is a bridge, a sacred space between two souls. It is where feelings are expressed, where intentions are clarified, where hopes are shared and trust is built. But in Islam, communication is not simply about honesty or connection. It is about boundaries. It is about knowing that the way you communicate can either purify a relationship or pollute it. It can either bring hearts closer to Allah or pull them away from Him slowly, quietly, invisibly. In our age, it has never been easier to speak or to speak too much. Messages can be sent within seconds. Hearts can grow attached without a single commitment. People can exchange laughter, secrets, compliments all behind the glow of a screen, in the privacy of the night, without a single witness except Allah. And yet, somehow, it's become normal. It's become acceptable, even encouraged, to get to know someone through endless conversations with no defined purpose and no protective structure. But in Islam, purpose comes first, then communication, not the other way around. You don't develop emotional intimacy and then decide if the person is serious. You first ask, what am I doing? What do I want from this? And is this the way to get it? Because when purpose is unclear, boundaries become blurred. And when boundaries blur, hearts fall where they were never meant to, too fast, too deeply, too recklessly. Boundaries are not barriers to connection. They are the guardrails that keep it on the right path. They ensure that your speech is measured, not manipulative. Your tone is respectful, not flirtatious. Your questions are intentional, not driven by curiosity or craving. You can still speak with clarity, you can still get to know someone, but the goal is not to entertain your emotions, it is to protect your dignity. When two people communicate within the guidelines of Islam, there is restraint, not coldness. There is shyness, not silence. There is clarity, not casual back. And, fourth, you don't just talk because you're bored. You don't keep messaging because it feels right. You don't look for comfort in someone who is not your spouse and justify it with future plans. Because in Islam, the future is not what makes something halal, it's the nikah, the contract, the commitment. So before you open your heart through words, ask yourself, would I speak this way if Allah made our conversation public? Would I want my parents or my future spouse to read these messages? Is this person even ready for marriage, or am I just feeding my loneliness through an emotional connection with no foundation? Islam teaches that even in communication, there is accountability. That even in your tone, you are responsible. Allah says in the Quran, do not be soft in speech, lest he in whose heart is disease should covet. Surah Al-Ahzab 33:32. It's not just what you say. It's how you say it. A single word, spoken with softness or charm, can awaken desires in someone who may be trying to guard their heart. You may not intend it, but the danger is real, and that's why Islam teaches us to speak with formality when communicating with someone we are not married to. Not with coldness, not with rudeness, but with clarity, with purpose, and with spiritual awareness. And if you're serious about someone, then the communication should reflect that seriousness. You set conditions. You involve family. You ask the right questions, not to test each other's emotional availability, but to understand compatibility, values, deen, goals. You treat the other person's soul as an amana, a trust. You don't build a bond you're not ready to protect. Real love doesn't grow from endless calls or secret chats. It grows from respectful distance, from purposeful interaction, from the discipline of two people who fear Allah more than they fear losing each other. It grows from knowing when to speak and when to stop, when to ask and when to wait, when to express something and when to guard it until it's time. Because when communication crosses limits, it leaves behind invisible wounds. It creates emotional debts. It builds expectations. And worst of all, it often binds two hearts before any real commitment has been made. Then when one person pulls away, whether out of hesitation, fear, or regret, the other is left confused, empty, questioning whether it was ever real. That is the price of boundary: less communication, attachment without assurance, and pain without protection. But when communication is handled with adab, with intention, with reverence for Allah's boundaries, something beautiful happens. The connection remains clean, the heart remains light. The future, even if uncertain, is approached with dignity. You speak when you must, you pause when you should, you ask when it's time. And all the while, you rely not on conversation alone, but on du'a, because only Allah knows what's best for your heart. In the journey of love, the kind of love that honors Allah, the kind of love that waits for its time, two forces carry the heart: patience and du'a. They are not just virtues we call upon when we're tired or disappointed. They are the spiritual lifelines that sustain the soul in a world that constantly pushes us to rush, to chase, to grasp what may not yet be meant for us. Patience is not weakness. It is strength, the kind of strength that holds back when every part of you wants to move forward. The strength to feel, but not fall. To long for something, yet not let that longing override your principles. In the world we live in, love is marketed as immediate. If you want someone, go get them. If you miss them, reach out. If your heart stirs, pursue it. But Islam teaches something far more profound. It teaches that not every emotion needs to be followed, and not every desire needs to be fulfilled right now. Sometimes the most powerful love stories are the ones that begin in silence. In du'a, in nights when you raise your hands to the sky and whisper names that no one else hears. Not because you're too afraid to speak, but because you know before your heart belongs to anyone else, it must belong to the one who created it. You wait not because you're passive, but because you're intentional. You understand that nothing worth having comes without divine permission, and so you're patient, not numb, not cold, but disciplined. Patience in love is not about pretending you don't care. It's about caring in a way that doesn't compromise your relationship with Allah. It's about protecting the heart of the person you love, even if it means keeping your distance. It's about making sure that when you do finally come together in a way that is halal, blessed and honorable, there is no guilt, no regret, no apology owed to your past self. And then there is Duʿā಼, the soul's most honest language. The most intimate conversation between you and your Lord. Duʿā಼ is where love is purified, where the heart is softened, where confusion is lifted. It's where you take all the feelings you can't say out loud, and you lay them at the feet of the one who sees everything. The one who already knows, the one who hears what is never spoken. You don't need to tell the world how much someone means to you when you've already told Allah. You don't need to fight for someone who's written for you Allah will bring them if it's car. And if it isn't, Du'a gives you the strength to let go with grace. It trains your soul to trust the unseen, to accept Allah's answer even when it's not what you expected, because sometimes the delay is a mercy. Sometimes the distance is protection, and sometimes the one you're praying for isn't the one who will walk with you to Jannah, but you won't know that until later. Du'a is not just asking for a person. It's asking for clarity, for what's best for your din, your dunya, and your akhirah. It's asking Allah to purify your feelings, to remove what is harmful, and to replace it with what is halal, peaceful, and permanent. And when your du'a is sincere, Allah never wastes it. Even if He doesn't give you what you asked for, He gives you something better, peace of heart, the ability to let go without bitterness, the ability to wait without pain, the ability to walk forward with tawakkul, full trust, that what is written for you will never miss you. And when love is wrapped in patience and du'a, it matures. It becomes less about I want them now, and more about Ya Allah, write what is best, and grant me the strength to accept it. It becomes a quiet submission to the wisdom of the one who sees the whole picture, and in that surrender the heart finds something the dunya cannot offer: peace without possession, love without pressure, and hope without haste. Because, at the end of the day, it is not who you hold on to that keeps you grounded, it's who you place your trust in. And if you place your love in Allah's hands, and you hold on with patience and prayer, even the waiting becomes beautiful. Even the uncertainty becomes worship. Even the silence becomes a place where your soul grows. Purity in a world that constantly normalizes everything, but it has become rare. But in Islam, purity is not naive. It is noble, it is not weakness. It is a form of strength that most people no longer recognize. Purity is the soil from which blessed love grows. And anything that is planted in purity, whether it's love, intention, action, or desire, is something that Allah nurtures, protects, and elevates with His blessings. What is Barakah? It is that unseen divine increase. It is when something small becomes enough, when something simple becomes beautiful, when a moment lasts in your heart for a lifetime, when a relationship doesn't just survive, it flourishes, because Allah is in the center of it. Barakah cannot be bought. It is not earned by effort alone. It is given by Allah to the people who strive for purity in their hearts, in their relationships, in their intentions, and in their paths. In love, purity does not mean perfection. It means sincerity. It means striving to do things right, even when it's harder. It means choosing restraint when temptation is near. It means saying no to shortcuts, because your goal is not just to have love, but to have it in a way that is pleasing to Allah, because only that kind of love survives. Everything else, the secret relationship, the endless texting, the emotional games, the we'll get married eventually, all of that might feel good for a while, but it doesn't carry barakah. It carries weight, guilt, fear, and eventually heartbreak. When you seek love the halal way, when you guard your eyes, your speech, your body, and your emotional space, Allah sees that. He sees every time you lower your gaze, not because you didn't notice beauty, but because you chose obedience over attraction. He sees every time you delete a message that crossed the line, every time you walked away from a conversation that was pulling you into sin, Every time you felt lonely and you cried to him instead of texting someone who wasn't yours to begin with, those moments are not small, they are seeds of barakah, because what you give up for Allah, He always replaces with something better. If you give up harem communication, He may replace it with a marriage full of peace. If you give up a love that wasn't meant for you, He may open the door to someone whose presence brings you closer to Him. If you give up the comfort of emotional attachment before it's time, He may give you the strength to walk into your future with clarity, stability, and dignity. This is the promise of Barakah, that Allah blesses what you purify for His sake. And purity isn't just about abstaining from the physical. It's about keeping your heart clean. Because even if two people are not touching each other, if their hearts are tangled in desire without direction, it still leaves a mark. So the believer doesn't just avoid sin with their hands or tongue, they protect their inner world. They ask themselves, is this relationship pulling me toward Allah or away from Him? And if the answer is not clear, they retreat. They pause, they recenter, because they know that what begins in purity ends in barakah, and what begins in disobedience often ends in regret. This doesn't mean the path of purity is always easy, it might come with isolation. Misunderstanding, you might feel like everyone else is finding love while you're still waiting. You might even face moments of doubt, asking, what if I miss my chance by doing things the halal way? But that's when you remind yourself, you're not waiting on people, you're waiting on Allah's perfect timing. And when He opens a door, no one can close it. When He writes something for you, it will come not a day early, not a moment late. But it will come clean, blessed, and whole. Purity also means not harming others in the name of love. It means not giving someone false hope, not flirting without intention, not stealing time from someone else's future spouse. It means treating hearts like trust, and if you're not ready to guard someone's heart in marriage, you don't play with it now. Because every heart you damage in this dunya may rise on the day of judgment to ask Allah for justice. And what felt like harmless affection in private may be the reason you face hardship in your own future, unless you seek forgiveness and strive to clean your path. Allah is not only the most merciful, He is also the one who honors your effort. If your journey of love is filled with slips and stumbles, but you keep returning to Him, asking for guidance, asking for purity, He will respond. He will open ways you didn't expect. He will place light in your decisions. He will bring the right soul at the right time, and you'll realize the pain of patience was far less than the pain of disobedience, because what is pure lasts, it has roots in heaven, it matures with time. It doesn't rush, it doesn't pretend, it doesn't manipulate, it prays, it waits, it builds, and when it finally comes together, it feels light not heavy, it feels blessed not forced, it feels full of gratitude not guilt.